Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the gorgeous library venue. It's a lovely space to hold information sessions, and we're very appreciative of the support from the library in organising this event here. My name's Vicky Perrott. I'm the President of Geelong Sustainability, and I'd like to start by, I'll clear my throat, by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land where we meet here tonight and pay respects to the Wadawurrung people and to their elders past, present and emerging, and to all First Nations people who are here today. We recognise their stewardship and their continuing connection to land, water and community. And that's a little icon, little image taken from the Wadawurrung's Healthy Country Plan. They've got a wonderful plan and video out. Oh, thanks. And we're very keen to support their plan and their concept of making country good together. So if you haven't turned your phone to silent, could I ask that you do that? Thank you. The presentation will last for about an hour, and there will be lots of time for questions at the end. And then also, if you need to know, there are facilities across the road, across the hallway, if you need those. So tonight we're here to learn about solar and battery technology and how that can help you to reduce your energy bills and, more importantly, along the way, help to do something about climate change and reduce our emissions and our carbon footprint. So in a moment I'm going to be introducing you to our experts here tonight from Mondo and RACV Solar, but it's my great pleasure to recognise the fact that this program has been developed with the support of all the 5 councils in the G21 region, and in particular here tonight we're very grateful for the support from the City of Greater Geelong. Now, Mayor Steph Asher was going to be here tonight to do a welcome. However, she has got caught in a rather nasty traffic jam coming back from Melbourne, and so she is an apology. But we're very, very grateful to have Councillor Belinda Maloney, who's come here tonight at very short notice, because she really believes in this program, and she's going to tell you a little bit about also what council are doing in some of their plans moving forward. Thanks very much, Belinda.
Thanks, Vicky, for that introduction. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm a poor substitute for our Mayor, but hopefully I can do a good enough job. And thank you so much for the warm welcome. And I'd like to also acknowledge the Wadawurrung people as the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet tonight and talk about all things solar. So I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. They've done a wonderful job of curating and caretaking of our lands and waterways for millennia. So really paying my respects here tonight for them. So thank you so much for coming out. It's a freezing cold night. Hopefully we can get warmed up with the systems in here, but it's really exciting to see everyone coming along to hear about solar, and I'm probably going to be sitting around and making notes as well because I've got a small array on my house and I'm keen to find out how a battery can enhance that to get me off grid, like the hermit I always wished I was when I was a little kid, getting off grid and getting all remote with me and my veggies and all that. You might know me from my, I guess, Cardinia Ward district sort of dealings, but I ran on a climate action platform, so this is something I'm really passionate about. I think that we're really heading fast in the wrong direction if we don't really start looking at this. So thank you all individually, each and every one of you, for your contribution to try and make the impact on climate less and less. So this program is supporting local businesses and who have been hit hard by the pandemic. So this is a really great boost to our region's economy. I've got a couple of notes here. I just wanted to say a big thank you to Geelong Sustainability. Thank you, especially Vicky as well, for spearheading this clever and creative initiative, as well as other community organisations who've done so. In this space, it's really difficult to get some traction, so all of your actions and drivers are really helping that change, so thank you. Also to give community members the tools in which to lower their energy costs. So you can see that this is going to make a massive difference to people in years to come. I was trying to explain it to my parents that you wouldn't have any bills. And like, any bills? No, you wouldn't have any because you're paying it off slowly. So I think the more people get this message out, the better. So it's kind of like the opposite of Fight Club. You know, you should always talk about solar communities and also batteries as well. I'm here to support this initiative, but also to talk about Council's strategic priorities. Have any of you seen the recent budget? Maybe? Boring stuff, that's all right, helps me get to sleep every night. But the sustainable growth and environment component is something I've really worked hard towards, and we're trying to be clever and creative and also healthy and inclusive with our community and our endeavours towards making people's lives easier and lower cost, and also involving ourselves in key priorities. You might have seen the Sustainability Action Plan or the Sustainability Framework. That's something that we're endeavouring to enact to reduce our carbon emissions at Council. You might have seen the LED lighting plan rolling out a little bit brighter than your previous old school lights. That's something of an initiative that will reduce our emissions as Council quite significantly. So there's a few things that we've been doing to try and chip away at that and the stats about our carbon emissions just on Council. So we've also driven the Victorian Energy Collaboration, which is Australia's largest ever buying group with 45 Victorian councils, to try and switch all of our buildings to green energy and also street lights as well. So you'll notice that from, I think it was last month that we switched that off. So some of our carbon emission graphs are going to look much cooler now. They'll be going much further south. And then as we get more grids solar arrays put on our new civic building, that's going to be even more impactful. So hopefully you can see that we're putting our money where our mouth is. Also, 30 city buildings have actually had the solar panels installed. You might have seen the LeisureLink one. That's kind of the most obvious one out the Warn Ponds way. And also the Heightened Child and Family Hub, which is incredibly great looking now that it's got a solar array on the top of it. Also, 25,000 street lights have been fitted with, or they're being fitted with in the recent rollout for energy efficient LEDs, which some people are getting used to. I guess they're a little bit more blue light than the typical old ones, but that saves us 8,000 tonnes of carbon emissions every year, which is pretty hefty. Also, the city managed operations are aiming to be carbon neutral by 2025. I don't know what kind of miracle we're going to have to pull that one off, but I'm pretty sure it's going to involve a lot of hard work by me. So if you see me really frail and perhaps a few bags under my eyes in the next few years, you'll know why, but we're really having a heavy and concerted effort over it. Also, you might have seen some of our community garden initiatives and some of our grants that have increased for our environmental groups. So if you're involved in those or you want to be, maybe come and chat to me after this, because it's something of an initiative that we're engaging local environmental and sustainability groups to try and get some more, awareness about growing your own food, having that circular economy, keeping your stuff local, buying local, and I guess that's kind of what this is about, keeping our power local. So I hope today's session will be informative. I'm certainly going to be in the background taking notes, but if you have any questions on anything council, feel free to hit me up on email, Facebook. I've got my details on the council website, and also if you are concerned with anything that council are doing or thinking that we're not doing something, also please email me, because I'm able to help unite those voices and really figure out what else we can do to reduce our carbon emissions by 2025, something I'm incredibly passionate about. So without further ado, I'll hand over to the crew from Mondo and RACV Solar, and Vicky in the interim. But thanks so much for having me, and thank you so much for being a part of this wonderful initiative. Thanks, Vicky.
That was excellent. Thanks very much, Belinda. And at short notice, she literally was asked to come here at 5:15. So she's done very well. So I just want to touch very briefly on a little bit about our group. We were established in 2007. We're a not-for-profit, registered environmental organisation and a charity. We're very much people-powered. So it's the passion of our volunteers and their commitment to our vision, which is what drives our activities. We very much suffer a little bit of eco-anxiety if you actually follow the scientific data. you do end up with a bit of echo anxiety. But we find that by being active, and we believe in this mantra of inspiring hope through action. So the solutions exist. They will actually be good for the economy. There is only jobs and the environment, not jobs or the environment. And so we very much believe in Margaret Mead, whose quote was, it was about a thoughtful group of committed citizens that got on and changed the world. We very much believe that. So we've got a mission now to empowering people to protect and regenerate our planet. There's actually so much carbon up there in the atmosphere. We are actually going to have to try and get it out at some point. Most of our activities focus around running events, projects, campaigns and advocacies. We've got a big campaign happening at the moment about the proposals for the gas import terminals in Corio Bay. We do not think that's a clever and creative way forward. And also the incinerator that's been proposed out at Lara, which could burn up to 400,000 tonnes of municipal waste every year. That's neither clever nor creative. We've picked 4 of the Sustainable Development Goals to be our focus, and very much around clean energy, sustainable cities, responsible consumption. So it's all about that circular economy, which is really becoming so important, and climate action. So this actual campaign is very much focusing on all of those. And the big reason why, around the world, climate tipping points are being triggered, and once they're triggered, they can't necessarily be reversed. So this, and here in Australia, that's a map of the ecosystems that are in collapse. So we really have no time. We must take action, and that's why we wanted to run this community solar program, to encourage people to learn about what they can do to make their bills less and make their homes more comfortable, and also to have a concerted action around climate action. The state government has got a Victorian renewable energy target, which has actually been very effective in driving investment and development in the region, and also through their solar homes program, which the boys will talk a lot about in a moment, explain where that's all going. But if you look here, you can see by council region how they are tracking with the uptake of rooftop solar on dwellings. And Geelong's sitting there at 19.8%. The target for 2025 is 40%, so that's we've got to double that in 4 years. So it's a big challenge, and that's even to get just these targets. Golden Plains is doing well, but the rest of us have got to get our skates on, and that's before we get to the emissions reduction targets, which the state government's just introduced. So about this program, we ran a program back in 2018 that was very successful. This program is bigger and better. We've gone through a lot of due diligence through the committee to select delivery partners that had the right sort of philosophy and the same values as ours, and would come with really strong reputations, good quality products and excellent warranties. And so that's why we're delighted that we're partnering with RACV Solar and Mondo to run this program. And I'm going to hand over and ask Dan Cowdell and Tom McKenzie to come up and take you through this presentation about how solar works, how batteries work, what are the rebates, what are the options. You'll hear Dan in his presentation talk a lot about we. Dan wears a number of hats. He's also on our GS committee, and he has chaired, he's a past president, and he's chairs our renewable energy task force. So he will also be talking about some of the other things that we're doing along the way. But please come up here, Tom and Dan, and begin your roadshow.
Thank you. Oh, is this one not on? This one is. Hi guys, how are we going? I'm Tom McKenzie from RACV Solar. I'm the residential sales manager, and I'm here today to give you a bit of background about who RACV is, why RACV Solar.
Got it.
And I'm going to be presenting with my colleague Dan, who's from Mondo, and he'll tell you a little bit about who he is and why he's here today.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. As Vicky said, Dan Cadell, I've been involved in Geelong sustainability for quite a while on a voluntary basis and in a number of roles. But Geelong Local, I'm a community energy partner with Mondo. Mondo, we're a company that does projects right from infrastructure projects where we hook in big wind farm generators into the grid, right through to supporting business with energy solutions and no upfront cost options. And very much lucky enough to be able to do these kinds of community projects. Recently we've done a project in Ocean Grove, which was a similar style of community solar program last year before COVID.
For those of you that don't know, RACV is 100% member owned and we're a non-for-profit business. So all of the profits that RACV generates has to be reinvested back into the members as well as the community. The members have said that the environment's a huge part of their lives, and we want to make sure that that's going to be the best it can be moving forward. So RACV purchased Gippsland Solar in December 2019. Gippsland Solar was founded back in Gippsland around 10 years ago by a guy called Andrew McCarthy, who's now the CEO of RACV Solar. He was one man that started it in his bedroom with his kids, everything going on, selling to his neighbours, had that big sense of community, and we've scaled that business up, and that's why we're here today.
Okay, so a few local projects just to give you a sense of some things we're doing. You'll see that big solar farm there is in Wanponds. It's the Deakin University Wanponds campus. It's a microgrid that supplies energy, roughly 50% of the campus's energy. So it's a 7 megawatt solar farm, a big battery, and then solar across the buildings as well of the campus.
The photo that we can see up there is the RACV Torquay Resort. We've got 510 kilowatts on the roof there, as well as 4 rapid EV chargers. Just moving with the times, we're also delivering 3 community projects within the Geelong region. As part of our energy and the resilience programs, we're donating 48 solar and battery systems across Victoria to community hubs for crisis days or days of high temperature. It's going to provide a stable source of power as well as a refuge for people that need it.
And I guess you might be wondering, why is Mondo and RACV both here? So just to sort of touch on our roles within the project. So Mondo, as I said before, we've run these kind of community projects before, and we've been helping in the background to organise the events and so on. We're also providing a virtual power plant for the program, which we'll talk about in a bit more detail later on. And then RACV, obviously huge capacity for solar installations and using local companies to actually deliver the work as well. So hopefully that clarifies that.
We're just going to go through a bit of a solar and battery 101. Just by show of hands, who here has solar on their roof?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. Of those people that have solar on their roof, who installed it in the last 5 years? Yeah, most people. Fantastic. And who has a battery currently? 2. Is anyone interested in battery storage today? Fantastic. Nearly everyone. Fantastic. We're going to go through the very basics, starting with what the main components of a solar system are, how they work in conjunction with a battery, how that can eventually save you more in the long run. There's a little diagram that you can see on the screens. We obviously have a panel on the roof that converts sunlight to DC power, which is the same power that's in your car battery in a car effectively. That then goes down the wall to the inverter, which converts that to AC power, which is then consumed in your house. That's wired in parallel with your switchboard, so it's instantaneously going to provide you with power. If there isn't sufficient power being produced, you'll still draw from the grid. We can also add a battery, which is at the very bottom of that picture. The battery can reduce your independence on the grid. We want to try and consume power during daylight hours. That's not always possible if we work or we're not home. We're going to touch on that a little bit later in the presentation.
Okay, a little bit of back to school. So we wanted to just talk about the difference between kilowatts and kilowatt hours. Can anyone sort of confidently, hands up, say, oh, I know the difference? Oh, yeah, good. One person, okay. And I'm sure a few of you with solar are a lot more, yeah, Scott should definitely know. A few of you would be, with the solar systems are probably a bit more acutely aware of it, but when you read your power bill, it's in a unit of measure for energy, which is kilowatt hours, okay? But then when you talk about solar system sizes, they're in kilowatts. So what does that actually mean? Kilowatts is a measure of power, and a 5 kilowatt system, that's the maximum that that system will generate on a sunny day in the middle of the day. And the longer it generates that power, it's generating energy over time, which ends up being a measure of kilowatt hours. Now, I think the light bulb kind of example is quite good. So look at the 100 watt light globe there, run that for 10 hours. That's 1,000 watt hours, which is the same as a kilowatt hour, okay? Think of it in terms of kilowatts power as like an engine, the size of the engine, and the fuel tank there is the amount of energy going through, so the kilowatt hours. All right, now this is what we call a generation consumption chart, and you'll see in the green, that's a typical solar output throughout the day. So we've got the morning, you see on the AM, I'll try not to shine it in your eyes, Tom, AM here, through to noon, going into the afternoon, and so the middle of the day is when the solar's generating the most. The blue line's representing a sort of typical household. This has probably changed a bit now that a number of us are working from home, but generally speaking, we see peaks in the morning. You're running your kitchen, the kettle's been boiled however many times for all the coffee, the heater might be on, and then you leave the home and there's a bit of a dip, and then you come back and turn everything on again, you know, TVs, etc., all through the evening. And what I wanted just, I guess, to demonstrate was that shaded section of energy there that's covered off by the solar system. So that's the energy that your house is consuming directly from the solar. And everything above that, here in this section, that energy is being sent out onto the grid. Okay, and you get a feed-in tariff for that energy when it does feed out, but you're not rewarded in as much financial manner, and we'll talk a bit more about it, as if you were to consume that solar directly. So you want to try and use as much of the solar through the daytime as possible, turn on things through the day if you're home, run things on timers so you can make the most use, and that's how you'll get the best value out of your solar system. Now you can see there is a bit of a mismatch between the usage and when the solar is generating, and that's really where the interest in batteries and the role of batteries comes to play. So we like to take this energy, the excess energy, through the daytime, store it in the battery, and then use it to cover you off in that evening period. And then if we size it correctly, it can even power the home right through the evening into the morning until the sun comes up again, and then you're operating the house off solar.
In regard to the solar system design, there are a number of the considerations that we need to take into effect to understand what the right solution is going to be for you guys. Don't worry, it may seem a little bit daunting. We'll definitely help you through that process and ask you a detailed list of questions. More than happy to come out to your property and discuss all of these things with you if that's absolutely necessary. Sorry, not absolutely necessary, we'd love to do that. There's a common misconception about the angle of the solar panels or the orientation of the solar panels. That north is obviously the best, which is true, but like this previous graph showed before, we do get a really high and pointy graph, and if we don't have a battery, it's not going to be very beneficial to send power back to the grid for a measly feed-in tariff. In some cases, east and west, although the yield is going to be lower annually by 8 to 10%, it will make it more usable where we have more power available in the morning and more available in the afternoon. Obviously, we're limited by each individual person's roof, but it's not to say that it has to be north. In fact, we can install panels facing south if that is the only option. That will perform around 40% less, particularly in winter. So it's not the be-all and end-all. Yeah. Absolutely. Plenty of other things to consider along there. Your usage profile, how and when we consume the power, as well as getting off gas / all electric homes. As we all know, gas isn't the best for the environment, and we're strongly opposed to the terminal that they're proposing in Corio Bay. And in terms of generating your own power for the environment, there's around a 30% loss between the generators over in Gippsland to getting power here. So if you can generate that power locally, it's going to save an enormous amount of emissions, effort and energy and be better for not just yourselves, but also everyone else.
Yeah, and maybe just to add to that as well, I think there's a lot there. So as Tom said, don't worry, that's the RACV team will help you through all of that. But these are the types of things that other solar companies should be asking you if you are getting quotes. There really needs to be a thorough assessment to run through and understand what your usage is like, and then make a choice on the system that's really suited to not only your needs now, but what you're going to do in the future, like thinking of electric vehicles, going gas-free, etc. Okay, so there was a massive amount of hands that went up when we said who's interested in batteries. So it's pretty in line with what we've seen so far with the program. We've had over 700 event registrations and nearing 200 expressions of interest for quotes now. And about 80% of those expressions for interest for quotes are people that are interested in looking at batteries. So why are we actually so interested in that? I think, and the main reason I'm hearing from people is really around independence from the grid, so being a little bit more self-sufficient and being able to power your home from solar energy that's generated locally on your roof, stored in that battery, and so you're only then drawing from the grid in the odd times here and there where your battery can't fully supply. You know, when the kids have got the TV on and you've got the heater running and the kettle's on and the oven kicks in all at the same time. Those sorts of times is where the grid's a real asset for us. But definitely that sense of wanting to take control of your energy usage. Batteries can certainly help with blackout power protection as well. So if you just install solar and there's a blackout, that solar system has to switch off. It's a safety requirement that it stops generating so that it can't feed back energy back into the grid and electrocute some poor linesman down the way trying to get the power back on. With the battery, it's possible to have the option where it'll kick over, the home will keep running from the battery, and typically the guys would just wire that into a few emergency circuits for you. You could run the whole house, but if you don't even realise that the power's gone out, you might leave the heater on and drain the battery really quick. So instead, just running a fridge circuit, a couple of lights, some power points to charge a mobile phone, that type of thing. But certainly that blackout power protection's an option. The battery will provide extra savings, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. And then there's also the option to participate in these sorts of emerging markets within I guess the transformation we're seeing around the grid, like the virtual power plant as well. I've got a whole slide on the virtual power plant coming up.
Rebates. Is everyone aware of the Solar Victoria rebate or the eligibility requirements? Getting a few nods, a few shakes, awesome. We'll go through them today. There's a federal government rebate, which is a sliding scale based on the number of panels that we're going to install on the roof. For a 5 kilowatt system, it's around $2,200. That will be inclusive of every quote that you see. Everyone gets that, no eligibility requirements. In terms of the state rebate, there's the Solar Homes package. So right at the top of the list, we've got the Solar Victoria rebate, which is $1,850. There's a battery rebate, $4,174. There's also a hot water / heat pump rebate, which is for $1,000. It isn't on that list. Worth mentioning at this point, we only can get one. If you've previously claimed the Solar Victoria rebate, you can't get the battery or the hot water rebate, or vice versa. In terms of the eligibility requirements, you have to be a homeowner occupier and it must be your principal place of residence. That unfortunately rules out holiday homes for most people. You have to have a combined taxable income of less than $180,000 per year, and the property must be worth less than $3 million according to the rates notice. There is also a requirement for the battery rebate that we must have a 5 kilowatt solar system or larger. So if you currently have a system smaller than that, we may have to look at expanding it in order to be able to partake in that battery rebate. Not on the slide as well, just recently, last week actually, there's now a business rebate available to the value of $3,500 for anyone that does own a business, provided that business has less than 20 employees. It's out there, it's ready to go towards the end of May. The big question in the media at the moment is the feed-in tariff. Are we going to have to pay for it? And the short answer is yes. The long answer is it's much more complicated than that. It's only a very small part of a much bigger picture, which is going to be a smart grid. Essentially, we have an ageing grid that isn't designed to take all of the solar that's being produced, particularly on mild days where there's no heating or cooling, but lots of generation being produced. So during those times, eventually in several years, not months, they will penalise you for potentially putting power back out to the grid. The good news is that the products that we're selling now and moving forward is that they can dynamically control when power goes out to the grid during times of high demand, and they will pay you handsomely for any power you send back to the grid. During times when they don't want it, production will ramp down, and that will save you money. You won't be penalised for doing that. It does obviously bring up the conversation of batteries, where you become much more independent. You can store that excess, save that money, rather than getting the measly 6.7 cents. Is there anyone still on a premium feed-in tariff in the room? 1, 2, 3. Yep, fantastic. So everything that we've spoken about, you pretty much want to do the opposite. You don't want to consume any power during the day because you maximise sending power back to the grid for the meantime. That program is going to finish November 2024, which you may or may not be aware of.
And maybe for those of you in the audience, the premium feed-in tariff was a 60-cent feed-in tariff when solar was really in its infancy, so it was to encourage those initial systems. And I talked to a gentleman the other day, and I think he said he paid over $15,000 for a 1 kilowatt system back then. It would have paid for itself many times over with that feed-in tariff, but gone are those days, I think, of seeing high feed-in tariffs. And the 11.2 cents which it's moving to, it just changes the way we look at designing a system. So we want to design it properly so it's suited to your usage profile. It certainly enhances the case for batteries as well. Okay, so how much can a system save you? It's a question we get a lot, and the answer is, I guess, it is variable. It's based on a lot of things to do with your usage, but here's a bit of some guidelines for you. So we've just got along the top there some typical system sizes. So the 5 kilowatt, 14 panels, 6.6 kilowatt, 18 panels, and then quite a large 9 kilowatt system. So those prices, and we'll go into pricing in a lot more detail later in the presentation, but just as an indicative sort of base level price, you're looking at $3,200 for a 5 kilowatt system, and that can save anywhere from that $850 mark to $1,500, depending on how much energy you use through the daytime. If you remember back to the chart that we showed earlier, if you can turn more on through the daytime, you'll get more savings, right? The lower figures calculated on the assumption that you're using 25% of the energy that the solar generates directly, and the rest is going out to the grid. And then the higher figure is based on you're using 75% self-consumption, 25% back exported out onto the grid. So you'll see that equates to a saving of around 2.5 to 4 years, which is really remarkable, a payback period of 2.5 to 4 years. And even in the larger systems, not more than 4.5 years. So it's really got to quite a remarkable point, particularly with I look at the way interest rates are at the moment. You couldn't get a kind of that similar return really anywhere else on your investment. So good savings to be had. What if you add the battery? Under the program that we've got, there's a range of different battery sizes. The small battery adds about $6,000 roughly to the cost of the solar system, and then upwards to $16,000 if you go for a really massive battery, and that's for huge households, double-storey buildings, and all the rest. But the battery will add another $400 to $2,000, and it's such a wide range again because we do need to understand your energy usage to be able to tell you exactly what that figure will be. But what's really interesting about this is that when you then look at what that does to the payback period, it's adding about 4 years in the best case scenario to sort of 8 years on top of the solar payback. And the typical warranties for a battery system are 10 years. So, and a design life of more like 15 years, right? So what we are finding now, for really the first time, we're seeing battery systems paying back before the warranties are expiring, which is really exciting to see that it is coming down and getting to that point where it makes sense for a lot of households to do. Do you want to add anything to that?
I think that's good.
Oh, that's a photo of our official launch of the Community Solar Program. So you've got all 5 mayors from the G21 region councils, Julia from the G21 Regional Alliance, I think I'm in there somewhere, Vicky's there, and Andy from RACV Solar as well. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the community program and what's different about it. Vicky spoke really well to the fact that Geelong Sustainability is wanting to do this for boosting renewables in the region. It's about climate action, really showing some initiative. And the program does have a stream for residents as well as businesses as well. It's supported by the local councils, as I said, and as we've been talking and engaging with communities and planning our different events, we have over 20 different partners now that have been involved in either helping run events or hosting events in their communities or promoting the program as well. So it's just been remarkable with that kind of interest.
There's 2 major reasons why RACV Solar's been chosen as a delivery partner. Number 1 is our reputation with both high quality products and installation after sales care. Any system that we install, if we have access to Wi-Fi, we will connect that to the internet so you have visibility on your app of everything that is happening. We also monitor that system for 10 years as well to ensure that your investment is going to save you money long term. The second reason is obviously the community donations within the region. We want to use local installers to support locals. We also want to support the regions that we're stepping into basically, and that's why we're able to offer competitive pricing, which we're going to go into a little bit further along the track.
Yeah, and just before I go to the next slide, that's a photo of Fiona, the first customer for the program. So she's from Buragara. She had a 6 kilowatt system installed on her birthday, actually, which is quite a good present. A little bit more about the community donations. So for every system that goes ahead, RACV Solar is going to donate a solar panel, complete with all the other equipment, inverters, and etc., to actually make a full working system. And if we're expecting, I guess with the response we've had so far, to be able to donate about 5 systems across the region to various community not-for-profits. So it would be a really terrific outcome. And Geelong Sustainability is looking for nominations for those not-for-profit community organisations that are really worthy organisations that are giving back. So if you've got any ideas, please talk to anyone in the blue shirts, Vicky, Scott's here, or any of the Mondo RACV team as well. Okay, I talked a little bit about the virtual power plant earlier, not a lot. So there's lots of terminology, right? Virtual power plant, microgrid, energy sharing, virtual net metering. There's all these terms that's thrown around at the moment as our energy market's sort of evolving. What we've got here is a virtual power plant, sometimes called a VPP. It is a way of connecting the battery in your home to others across the community so that they can all act at once to form a bigger power plant. And that power plant of batteries would respond to a grid event. So think of it like your battery's sitting there, it's being used for your home 99% of the time, but it's on standby for the virtual power plant. And when there's a grid event, which could be a heat wave day where we have a couple of heat waves days in a row and everyone's houses heat up and we just keep running our air cons, and then everyone comes home at 6 or 7 o'clock and there's a brownout, that type of event. Or it could be like one of the generators tripping out, like a coal-fired power station trips, and the quality of the power that's coming through the power lines just drops really terribly all of a sudden. The virtual power plant can kick in at a moment's notice, and it only needs to respond for sort of about 5 or 10 minutes maximum. So it's a very short period of time. It kicks in and just supports the grid, and those sorts of events happen about 20 times per year. So for, I guess, making your battery available, Mondo's offering an extra little bit of an incentive, a revenue stream for you of $150 per year, and that's paid with an FPOS gift card for every 12 months that you're part of the virtual power plant. And basically, it's just, as I said, using it for the grid event, and it draws the battery down by less than 10% during those events. So it's not a lot of, I think sometimes I say virtual power plant and people imagine it's draining your battery right down to nothing. It's not doing that whatsoever. So that's definitely an option for you if you're thinking about batteries as part of the program. It's no lock-in contract. You don't need to switch retailers as well. So you can stay with your retailer or choose to continue to shop around with your retailer. And if you would like a bit more info on it, you're more than welcome to chat to myself or afterwards. But we've also got a flyer and some frequently asked questions just sitting over there at the table, so make sure you grab one of those as well. The virtual power plant's coordinated by the UBI, so it's our little white box that we've got over there. Nathan might like to do a little bit of a product demonstration. Point to it, Nathan. Thank you, lovely. Yep, very nice. So it's the brains behind it all. It takes the market signals in and tells the battery when to fire up to put that power back into the grid. This is just a little snapshot of the online portal that you do get from the UBI. So you can see the battery charge, what your house is doing at the time, how much your solar is generating, how much power you're using from the grid, and then you've got a bunch of different graphs there for what the historic usage has been like as well. So that's just an online monitoring that's available through your mobile phone or through a web browser as well.
Just a little bit about us. I suppose what sets us apart is the buying power that we have. As a big business, we're able to offer very competitive prices, but still provide each individual person with a personalised quote. We're more than happy to come out to your house, sit down with you, tell you where the panels are going to go, how they're going to fix to the roof, where the battery can situate. These are a few of our sales guys in Melbourne. Peter on the right-hand side is actually sitting at the back of the room, so if you have any questions at the end, feel free to direct them towards him. He's trying to hide. We're also using 2 local installation teams. We're using both Great Ocean Solar Electrical in Ocean Grove and Vortex Electrical as our delivery partners. We don't just want to ship whoever we can get down from Melbourne to come and install these systems. We want to support locals, and we want to give them the time that they need to install each system. There's no time constraints. We're not going to try and smash out 2 or 3 installs in one day. Each system gets a whole day dedicated to its installation so that we can ensure the quality moving forward, basically. Here's the 3 packages that we have on offer today. Each package has different options. I'll go through those in a moment. The first option is just the solar panel systems on its own, which has a couple of different inverters made in different places, as well as different panels with different warranties. The middle section is solar and battery storage, which can allow you to partake in this virtual power plant option, as well as save you more with the battery. Obviously, we can also retrofit a battery to any system. It doesn't matter what inverter that you have out there, we can potentially retrofit a battery. We may need to add more panels if it's not large enough. We're not going to recommend a battery to you unless we think you really need it, and that's why we have those detailed list of questions that we spoke about a few slides ago.
For those of you that might have snuck in and didn't get one of the event brochures, that chart is actually in there as well, so you can refer back to that if you'd like. There's some over on the table.
Just to touch on a few of the products that we have available, on the right-hand side there we have a Trina solar panel, which is our standard panel offering. That is a Chinese manufactured panel with a 15-year product warranty. Beside that is a SunPower panel, which is manufactured in Mexico. That carries a 25-year product warranty, and that would be our premium offering in terms of panel. The difference in price is probably $1,000 to $2,000, roughly, depending on the system size. Beside that, we have the Fronius solar inverter, which is just a standard solar inverter. It can't charge a battery at this stage, but that would be our premium inverter offering. We also have a SunGrow inverter, which is manufactured in China as well with a 10-year warranty, but it is a hybrid inverter, so we can retrofit that BYD battery, which you can see there on that side. BYD is the largest manufacturer of batteries in the world currently. They've been in business for more than 20 years, as have the rest of the products across the board. A big part of why we chose these products is they all have local support with an office in Melbourne or in Sydney, so they're not too hard to get hold of if we do have any warranty support. Of course, RACV would carry out any warranty issues that were the case, but if we, for some unforeseen reason, in 10 years no longer exist, these brands more than likely will. They've lasted the test of time.
So a couple of probably things just to talk about there. The difference between a solar inverter and a hybrid inverter. A solar inverter is designed just to connect the panels directly into that. So it's the box on the wall, right, that converts your solar power coming from the panels on the roof into usable AC electricity in the house. And the standard inverter is just designed to connect the panels in, whereas a hybrid inverter connects the panels into it, but it also has the capacity to connect batteries into it directly as well. So you don't need an additional box on the wall next to it as a battery inverter. So I think the consideration around that is if you're thinking about just getting solar only to start off with, have a bit of a think about how soon you might like to get a battery, and if it's in the next few years, then I would definitely say think about getting that hybrid inverter so you're essentially ready to plug that battery straight in down the track when you're ready to do that.
Worth pointing out too that there's more than 1 million solar systems in Australia that are orphaned, as in the company that sold that to them is no longer there. So if they need to look for warranty support, they've got to get on the phone to wherever their products are from. So that's probably another reason why, if it was me and my house, I'd be looking towards RACV Solar.
Go back, I got one more. So the BYD battery, the reason we chose that one is because it's a modular unit, right? So you can have a very small battery with one block. So it's like giant Lego blocks. You can add another block and another block and keep building as you go. So not everyone needs a huge 14 kilowatt hour battery, right? You might just need a small one if your usage is pretty conservative, but it gives us the flexibility to sort of size it appropriately. And also, if you start with a small one and decide, next year I'd like to actually get a bit more battery capacity, it's not quite seeing me through, or you've got the option to do that as well. So I think that's an important one.
Just touching on the indicative pricing again, this is in your brochure, but we'll just go through a few of the options today. Worth pointing out that all of these prices include either the Solar Victoria rebate or the battery rebate, whichever one is relevant, whether it includes batteries or not. It is also indicative pricing, whether it's a tin roof, north facing, not tiles, not second story, no switchboard works. Any of those additional changes would incur more costs, but we can go through a detailed quote with you if you put through an inquiry. On the left there, as a low user, the 5 kilowatt system is just a guide. We don't have to have 5 kilowatts of panels or 6.6. We can mix and match as many or as few panels as you're going to need. And a big part of that is going to be what your long-term plans are in the property. If it's just 2 of you, maybe you're going to sell it, there's going to be 4, whether you're going to look at an EV charger, whether you're going to look at battery storage, etc. Just a little bit about the process moving forward. If you do like what you hear today and you'd like to put in an inquiry, we've got those white expressions of interest forms inside the brochure. That's probably going to be the priority. That's the quickest way to get a quote. If you don't want to fill that in today, on the back of the brochure there is a QR code that you can scan with your phone. You can also visit the Geelong Sustainability website and put in an inquiry through there. Worth pointing out that the rebate application can seem a little bit daunting, only takes approximately 20 minutes to get through, and we're more than happy to sit down with you and go through that process. They're going to require a copy of a rates notice, proof of income and 100 points of ID. Not too complex, but again, we can sit down with you and guide you through that process. We can also do all of the paperwork with the energy retailer and Powercore, conducting the pre-approval before the quote is submitted. Increasingly, Powercore is reaching behind the meter and telling some of the customers that they can't export any power to the grid. That's basically because in that area the transformer may be at capacity. We're going to determine that prior to providing with a quote to ensure that we know what our options are moving forward. Although that feed-in tariff is fairly small, if you're not looking at a battery, it is going to affect the payback period somewhat.
It might be worth just touching on the export limits a little bit. So when we want to connect our solar system and feed that power back to the grid. It's Powercore who own the poles and wires and operate those poles and wires that have to approve the connection of that system to the grid. And sometimes, probably I'd say increasingly so, although they are working to improve the situation, you might find that you do get that approval come back and say, no, sorry, you're going to be limited to a certain amount of export, or sorry, you've got no export at all, so a full limitation. It can be really random, so I couldn't tell you it's this suburb or that street. It does tend to come up all over the place, but as Tom said, there's going to be, in the process of getting the quote to you, they do a pre-approval before you've even decided to go ahead. So you would know where you stand anyway, no matter what.
In terms of a time frame between you lodging an inquiry and us being able to deliver the project, we're probably sitting at about 8 to 10 weeks. Currently, we have had a lot of interest in the program. In reality, if you put an inquiry in today and you signed it tomorrow, we could probably do it in about 6 weeks, but the longer you wait, if you are seriously considering this wait time is probably going to extend by a number of weeks, just to let you all know. What's included in my quote? We're obviously going to list the products that we provide as well as all the data sheets, so you're more than welcome to do all of your own research on the products. Don't just take our word for it. We're also going to give you a roof design with a satellite image to give you a bit of an idea of where they're going to sit on the roof. That could be subject to change. Clear pricing, and we're also going to give you all of these metrics. This graph represents on the blue bars what you consume in your house, and the yellow line represents the solar production, how that varies throughout the year. So we will have an average production. 1 kilowatt of solar is going to produce around 3.6 kilowatt hours of energy, but that does vary throughout the year. In summer, we're going to produce a lot more, in winter a lot less, and that's some of the design considerations, whether we can justify a battery or not. In terms of the options for purchase, obviously upfront purchase is the easiest and most straightforward. It may not be affordable for everyone. There is obviously the Solar Victoria loan of $1,850. Now that is in conjunction with the rebate, so if you apply for the $1,850 rebate, you can also apply for the $1,850 loan that's paid interest-free over the next 4 years. It is optional. We also have a few homeowners adding it to their mortgage with interest rates so low, between 1% and 3% in a lot of cases. I think CommBank has come out last week with a green loan, which is around 1%. It could be a really good option, depending on your situation, when the return on investment for a solar system is around 20%. So it's a pretty solid investment. We also have access to RACV finance as well. I think the interest rates are between 3% and 5%, and if you've been an RACV member for a number of years and you're a bronze, silver or gold member, there is a discount for that finance option as well.
The other one on there is the NIL scheme, so no interest loan scheme. It's a $1,500 loan that's available to low income households, so it's means tested, but that's certainly available. And there is also, you might have said earlier, a Solar Victoria rebate available for rental properties as well. So if there's any renters in the audience, there are some options now.
There are a couple of other options we have available if you have solar and or batteries, or you're not able to afford any of those options. A smart hot water heat pump could be a good option to look at. One of the biggest advantages of a heat pump is that it's going to use 80 to 90% electricity than a conventional electric hot water unit. Because that's only going to use maybe 1 or 2 kilowatt hours per day, we can set that to run during the daytime, and in essence that's going to be a battery, which is storing some of that energy we have as excess to be able to consumed later in the day. We also have an RACV branded EV charger. It is a Type 2 socket, so it's able to charge any electric vehicle. We can also set that to trickle charge from solar directly, so you don't have to use any more power than you produce. In most cases, your solar and battery system is probably going to be a supplement to the EV car, depending on the size of the battery, but feel free to come up and ask me a few more questions about those products at the end, if you have any.
There's one of the EV chargers over there, actually, if you'd like to see one. I'll do a shout out too. Vicky will mention it later, but Geelong Sustainability is about to launch a electric vehicle bulk buy in June as well. So if anyone's sort of thinking about that, I dare say you'd like to attend those events.
How to get started, as we previously mentioned, feel free to fill in the expressions of interest form, scan the QR code on the back, or visit the website, geelongcommunitysolar.com.au. We've probably got time for a few questions. If you guys would like to raise your hands, we're going to get James at the back there to run around with a microphone so everyone can hear it, and then we'll do our best to answer those questions.
I think there's one just here, James. Yep. He was in first. Oh, no, behind.
We'll get there.
Jump the queue.
Lucky me. My name's Gabe. We've got a 5 kilowatt solar system, and quite recently installed. It's going well. We've had it in for about a year. But we have a gas instantaneous hot water system. How much does it cost roughly to...
For a heat pump?
Yeah.
Approximately $4,000 to $5,000.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so the payback time on that, what would you
Compared to an electric hot water unit, it's around 6 to 7 years, depending on the tariff that you're paying. Compared to gas, it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess the plan environmentally is to get off gas entirely, so it's not just an economical argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
I have a question about the batteries, and now because we see that more and more people get into electric cars, and that electric car battery has got anywhere between 20 and 70 kilowatt hours of battery storage. So does RACV Solar have any solutions to like what they have now in Japan, and I think they're starting to bring it to Australia?
Yep.
To plug in the car into the circuit in the house and then use the battery when the car is at home?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're talking about is bidirectional charging, where we essentially have a battery on wheels that we could potentially drive our car to work or to the supermarket, plug it in charge, and then bring that car home, and it could power our home. It's not here yet. It's coming. This charger eventually will be able to do that, but at this point in time, it's still some time away. Yeah.
A couple of questions, I guess. Number one is ongoing costs relating to maintenance, that sort of area, and replacement costs of any of the panels and the battery. And the only one is my annual electricity costs are about $1,450 a year. Does that mean I could basically have no electricity costs at the end of the year if I installed a battery?
Very good question. First question about maintenance. More or less maintenance free. The batteries are certainly maintenance free. The solar panels, more or less maintenance free. We probably recommend to clean every 1 or 2 years, but in terms of the difference that that's going to make is only 1 or 2%. I use the analogy of like our kitchen window or our windows at home. We're all guilty of not cleaning them for 12 months, but you can certainly still see through them. The panels on the roof, unless they're visibly dirty, are going to have wind and rain clearing most of the debris, so there won't be any issues there. In terms of the system with solar and batteries, I guess the limit is going to be the budget in most cases. It's a reality that we can probably save 60, 70%, even higher than that. But it's going to be very difficult to eliminate the bill entirely. We still have that daily supply charge of $1.20 or $1.30 every day that's going to keep ticking away, so we have to overcome that entirely to make it a $0 bill.
So I'm talking about usage costs basically there. And most of my usage comes in the daytime, so I'm home all day.
Yep, fantastic. So you could be a really good candidate for solar, perhaps not batteries. We would do a full analysis and discuss that with you if you wanted a quote.
Hi, I'm Marge. I'm just really curious about how the virtual power plant works. Like, how many houses do you need to sign up to it, and do they have to be all close to each other or far apart? Like, I'm just curious about how it works.
Yeah, brilliant. So the way the virtual power plant works is we actually need to reach a megawatt worth of batteries to be able to bid into the market. Okay, so this particular VPP is available for Geelong customers, but in conjunction to that, Mondo's also launching virtual power plants over in the east of Victoria as well, with some of our other community groups that we work with. And so that, along with some other larger batteries that we have spotted around Victoria. We're hoping to reach that megawatt. So we're not there just yet, but it's certainly an area that our business is pushing towards, and it's a key strategic focus for us to do. So they don't need to be, in the same street at all. As long as you're on the national energy market, which, if you're connected to the grid, you're part of that market, whether you like it or not at the moment. Then it's possible for that virtual power plant to work.
G'day. I just wanted to know, in terms of the solar loan, does that count for if you've got a battery as well, like in terms of that 4,000 battery?
Good question.
rebate?
No, it isn't. There's a Solar Victoria rebate of 1,850 and the Solar Victoria rebate loan, I guess the additional loan is only for the solar component, not for the battery component.
Okay. I just had a second question as well, just in regards to the batteries.
Yep.
Do they degrade over time? And I mean, if they do, what does that look like?
Yeah, they certainly do. I think they guarantee 6,000 cycles, which is approximately 16 years, and they guarantee 75% of the capacity of the battery after 10 years. So yes, they will degrade, but at a very slow rate compared to our phones, which, is only a year or two in most cases.
We've actually been watching quite closely the performance of the BYD battery, and there's a test centre in Sydney that's been funded by the Australian Renewable Energy Agency, and so the BYD has been performing really well. In that test centre, they give batteries hell. They basically charge them and discharge them multiple times per day and really put them through it. So, yeah.
Hello. Could you tell me what the price for the battery would be without the rebate? Because you're not eligible for the rebate if you got it for the panels.
Yep.
So
The cheapest retrofit option is around $11,000 for the battery without the rebate.
that's the smallest one, is it?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah. What size is that?
4 kilowatt hours.
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
Yeah. So the pricing that you see in the product brochure, it's just a matter of adding, if you're not eligible for the battery rebate, you can just add that 4,185, is that
174,
Oh, I
but
got it
yes,
wrong.
close.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
A few more over there.
Two over here. Sure. Yep, very good question. So both the solar rebate and the battery rebate are point of sale discounts, and they're assuming your eligibility. So if you chose to proceed, we'd accept a deposit, upload everything to the Solar Victoria portal. Assuming that you fit the eligibility criteria, there's plenty of rebates available currently. We can't guarantee that they are going to continue to be available forever. There's X amount per month, but currently there's more than 4,000 available for this month, and there will be the next following months as well. If you were deemed ineligible for that rebate for any reason, you would get your money back. Yep.
Hi, I've got a question around the value adding to your house value, basically.
Yep.
It's curious, so far of all the sustainability and retrofitting options we've done, it doesn't seem to boost at least the bank's valuation of your house. Do you see that changing in the future, and how can we encourage these kind of investments to be better recognised, even if it's on domain.com, that there's some kind of filter search that you can do on buying and renting?
Absolutely, it's a really good point, and I guess it depends who is buying your house. The best way moving forward, I suppose, is education. More people attending events like this, telling your friends and family about making a change for the environment as well as for your hip pocket as well. There was a study done in Melbourne recently that it adds about half the cost of the solar system to your house, depending on who's going to be buying it on average. I mean, some people don't care. Some people are going to look for a house with solar and batteries. It's $10,000 or whatever it is that they don't have to spend. But yeah, it'd be great if everyone was aware of it.
Okay, thanks. Could I ask a second question?
You may.
Around the traceability of the, for these products, whether it be the panels or the batteries, particularly, I guess, the battery I'm interested in terms of where the lithium comes from and what kind of environmental impact you have on a broader level there with, all the metals and so forth that need to go into these products.
Yeah. I mean, It's all ored out of the ground at the moment, unfortunately, and the batteries are manufactured in China. Do you know where the lithium comes from? It's a really good question. It's the first time I've had it. We'll certainly look into it, and I'm more than happy to get back to you on that one. I'm not sure.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. So, some of the other impacts, though, so there's been a lot of interest in terms of modern slavery as well. So I believe you've done a thorough check on that through the RACV supply chain. So there was no instances of modern slavery, which is fantastic. And I think the other point might be worth just making is around the end of life as well for solar panels and battery systems. And it's very much, there's a recycling industry that's in its infancy in Australia. There is, and I did a bit more research because we've been getting quite a few questions about this, which is great. There's around 5 pilot sort of recycling factories around Australia at the moment. One of them's in Melbourne. They can break the panels down and reuse the aluminium and the glass and the precious metals from them, which is quite amazing. But at the moment, most panels, so if a system's faulty, for example, they're going to landfill. So I think it's really important to make sure that industry really fires up, and if you do replace your system down the track, that you really make sure that those panels are ending up in the right place, because we can certainly process them. Lithium batteries is, again, just coming online. There's a battery recycling initiative, and I know the CSIRO's done a huge amount of work around lithium and being a lot more responsible around that, and they can certainly recycle the batteries. There's one plant that I'm aware of that's in a pilot process at the moment, so I think we'll see a lot more in the coming years.
In regards to recycling, we want to try and avoid that for as long as possible, so investing in high quality components is going to be one of the best ways to do that. Like, we're not going to shy away from, we're not going to be the cheapest offer in the market. You can open the paper and find a 6.6 kilowatt system for $500, but I'd be hard pressed to find anything with a long warranty or that's a high quality product at that price. So yeah, you really do get what you pay for, and we can try and keep it out as landfill as long as we can. Absolutely. I don't think lithium is going to be the answer forever. It's just the best product we currently have available to us now that's fit for purpose, value for money. There are other options that are hugely expensive and very early in their stages of development, but I don't think lithium is going to be forever. Yeah.
Okay, I think we got time for one more, Vicky, or are we going to wrap up? I don't know, that might be it. Any other questions? Oh, one more. Okay, last one.
And I think I got a rebate when they were installed, so it means I do not get a rebate for the battery.
That is correct, yes.
And I'd have an old-fashioned, or I'd need to get a hybrid inverter put in as well.
Yep, exactly right.
How much would all that cost?
So the price for that... the price for that 4 kilowatt battery with the hybrid inverter is around $11,000. Yeah.
That's without the rebate?
Correct, yes. Yeah, closer to 6 with the rebate.
Okay.
How long ago you got your panels? If it was under this 50% rebate feed-in tariff, then you actually are eligible for this current.
Yeah, good point, Scott. So Scott's just sort of said, if you got your panels quite a while ago and it wasn't under the Solar Homes program, then you may well be eligible for that. So it's probably just double checking how long ago your system was installed. Yeah.
We're going to stick around for the next 10 or 15 minutes after this presentation, so if any of you do have any questions, feel free to come up to us and we'll walk you through the products, and we'll hand over back to Vicky. Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Tom and Dan. Haven't they done a wonderful presentation to take us through all the ins and outs and make it sound understandable, and hopefully didn't lose anyone along the way. So I really appreciate that. My own house, which is only my house, myself and my husband, we got a 1.5 kilowatt system a long while ago. and had that peak feed-in tariff. But when we ran this bulk buy program 3 years ago, we hopped in and got more solar and a battery, and it's amazing how much it changes your behaviour. And particularly for the guys, they actually become nerds when it comes to the apps and the information. They love it. And I said to my husband this morning, I was going to put a load of washing on. He said, no, you can't. We're running the dishwasher today. Right. And he's actually said to me, do you really need to have that cup of coffee at night? Like, because he doesn't drink tea and coffee. And I go, yes, I do. But, you know, you actually see every time you turn the kettle on, there's this big spike on. So it really does start to change your behaviour, and it's fun. And you can do some comparison. I would like you to invite you to stay around and talk to the guys back there. They're going to hang around and chat to you as long as you like. So if you've got any further questions, there is that expression of interest form if you'd like to. They are saying they're giving these priority processing, so if you want to put it in, it is only an expression of interest, and I think it's what you've seen from this presentation. This is not a hard sell. This is about finding the right solution for you, and in some cases that might be not doing anything, or I'd be saying, you know, how about getting some more insulation in the roof first and fixing the drafts, because it's much easier to save a watt than to generate a watt. So first of all, energy efficiency, and that's something that our group is going to be doing some other things, as well as obviously Sustainable House Day, which is our major event in October. If you've got any ideas for the community donation, please come up to me or send us an email through our info address on the website. If you've enjoyed tonight, if you know other friends or family who you think could benefit, please tell them about the other workshops that we're running. We're going to be next week at Bannockburn and Ocean Grove, and then we're going to be at Polar Bay and Anglesey and Queenscliff and Warm Ponds and North Geelong and Colac. So as I said, we are covering the whole region, so please shout out and tell people about it. And just wanted to finish by just doing a little plug for our group. We'd love to get you involved, whether or not it's just following us on social media, whether it's, you know, subscribing to our newsletter or becoming a member, whatever you can do. This is the crucial decade. We have to turn this around now for the sake of our children. Out here tomorrow, the students are striking. There is going to be a national student strike for climate, and their hashtag is Fund Our Future, Not Gas. So anything we can do along that, we encourage you. So just a little bit, as Dan mentioned, we're partnering with a good car company, and they're a social enterprise that's been running for about 5 or 6 years now, with the concept of just trying to build a second-hand car market for EVs as a way of making it easier for people to get into an EV. The research shows from Europe, once you've had an electric vehicle, you don't go back to a petrol car. How this will work, we're having a launch at the Gordon. It'll be part of our Clever Living series, and we'll have some cars on displays, and there'll be an information session a bit like about this. They are second-hand Nissan Leafs and other cars like that, which they are importing from Japan and then doing all the conversions and quality checks and registration and all of that. So you'll be able to, if you go to that website, goodcar.co./Geelong, you can register interest, you can register to come along to the information session, and then we're going to do a show and shine event. So you'll actually have the chance of doing a 45-minute test drive in one of these cars, so you can really know what you're looking at. And they literally, for the smaller ones, which are 24k battery, which will take you 100k range, they're starting at $17,000. So, you know, something which we think is really great. And I'm just going to finish with this slide from David Attenborough. It's got to stop wasting anything, okay? Whether it's energy, food, plastic, but most of all time. So let's get on with it, and let's start that clean energy transition. Thanks very much for coming along tonight. I hope you found it enjoyable, and please stay and talk to the others.